How to help employees be their best. This is what we all want to do, isn't it? It's what our jobs are, isn't it?
Yes.
At the end of the day, in our efforts to get every bit out of every single employee or every single system, sometimes we overlook the simple. Don't we? We overlook exploring tools that are either inexpensive or more simplified, less complicated. The tool we're going to talk about in this session is looking to greatness. Looking to greatness, the habit of emphasizing individual strengths. So let's begin by looking back at our childhood. All of us individually. No tears now. From childhood through, let's say, high school, ask yourself, which happened more often? Did our parents, our teachers, our trusted advisors in school, did they focus on our weaknesses? Or did they nurture our strengths more often?
Weaknesses.
We learned that, didn't we? I mean, we were told to be careful the way we color. Make sure it's in certain rules, in certain boxes in the blocks. Don't color outside the lines. We were told how to play, what we were doing wrong. And we brought this with us into business. A focus, not so much in what people were doing well, but what people were doing poorly. We brought it into business. I can remember a time back in many, many years ago, back in junior high school. When I was growing up, I was a pretty good baseball player. My dad thought I was good enough to play in the professional leagues at some point, major leagues. And I was a catcher. And the position's really not that important, but I had a strong throwing arm. I was good defensively. I had good size. I was a left-handed hitter, okay? Left-handed hitter, which was a little unusual. And I had power, and I had the ability to hit for a good average, meaning that I got a lot of hits for each time at bat. So my dad thought I was going to play in the professional leagues. And then I got into junior high school, and a coach thought that it would be good for me to be what's called a switch hitter. So let me explain what a switch hitter is. If you're a left-hand hitter and a right-hand pitcher, left-hand hitters hit right-hand pitchers better because of the way they can see the ball. So when you're facing a left-hand pitcher, if you were a right-hand hitter, you'd statistically do better. So theoretically, if I could hit from either side of the plate, my average would be better. So was the theory of my junior high school coach. So for an entire season, beginning in the early spring, right straight through summer, we worked on my hitting as a right-hand hitter. What do you think happened?
Messed up your left hand.
It messed up my left side. You're absolutely right. Not only did I become just a sort of an average right-hand hitter, but my results as a left-hand hitter declined. You know, if we constantly focus on weaknesses, and that's what happened. We practiced my weaknesses. We practiced them every single day, and we began to forget about my strengths. And from childhood to date, we've learned to focus on people's weaknesses, to the point we've brought it into our business world. Let me introduce a couple of terms that we're going to be working with. Contagious leaders and contained leaders. Contagious leaders fundamentally believe that their number one job is to create a culture that's rich with talent of people who just perform to their full potential, and they're excited about doing so. Contained leaders, on the other hand, are very much about themselves, their own performance, and results, and they're not interested in creating that culture. Contagious leadership is actually a creative process where contagious leadership is an environment that is rich with talent Talented people who willingly and enjoyably perform to their full potential. That's what contagious leadership is all about, is creating that environment. Doing whatever we can as leaders to create that environment, to create an environment where people can step up and perform to their full potential. It's an attitude, and it's an attitude that spreads throughout an organization. It'll spread from one person to another, or as I like to say, it'll spread from the mailroom to the boardroom. And it usually goes in that order, from the mailroom to the boardroom. And in that organization, there's this distinction that we have between contained and contagious leaders. Contained leaders focus on people's weaknesses. They always look at what's wrong. That's the place where they begin, is what didn't happen the way I wanted it to happen? What went wrong? What mistakes happened? They concentrate on mistakes. They tell us what we did wrong, but rarely ever tell us what we did correctly. They don't pat people on the back. Oftentimes you'll hear a contained leader say, but what do we pay people to do? We pay them to do it correctly. Contagious leaders see the world differently. And believe me, contagious leadership is something you can train yourself to do. Contagious leaders, many that we work with, have taught themselves to focus on people's strengths. They're well aware, contagious leaders know, probably better than the contained leader. They know what the weaknesses are. They're aware of it. It's their job to be aware of it. But they focus on people's strengths. They know what you are best at. Okay? And where do you perform the best? Do you perform the best in an activity that you know you're great at, or in an activity that you feel uncomfortable doing and you feel like you're not quite prepared for? I'll tell you another story, personal story. Years ago, I was in the advertising business. And I had some great success in being able to work on accounts where there was a relationship problem. Well, we had a very large and important account that had a problem. So the president of the agency asked me to come in and work on that client. The president of the agency made two fatal mistakes. First of all, he did not fully understand the problem. He thought the problem was a relationship problem. So he also didn't understand the strengths, the real strengths of the solution, which was me. See, the problem wasn't a relationship problem, the problem was a detail problem. The client, they had a media program for their advertising that literally on every quarter, the media plan was about that thick. I mean, it was very, very detailed. And the client actually expected someone who would read this. Ha, go figure. I am not a detailed person. I'm a relationship person. I go in and work out relationship issues. The client expected me to know what was on page 247 of that media plan. They didn't get it. So a detail problem became a relationship problem. Do you see what I'm saying? The CEO made two fatal flaws. He did not understand what the client was looking for, but more importantly, he didn't understand my strengths. I can want to be a good engineer from now until doomsday. It's never going to happen. It just won't happen. Employees want to work with people who sort of understand their strengths. There's a downside to this whole weakness thing. Employees really want to work with contagious leaders. They don't want to work with contained leaders. They resent the fact, employees will resent the fact that you're constantly looking over their shoulder, telling them what's wrong. And, you know, oftentimes we chalk it up and we make an excuse for it by saying, well, I'm a type A. Well, the employee doesn't care what type you are. Do they? Employees will resent the fact that you're constantly focusing on what they're doing wrong. We were on the board of a new resort, and it was a very exciting time. This was a world-class resort, or had the potential to be a world-class resort. And when it opened, all the staff were filled. There was shine in their eyes. They're all filled with possibility and serving clients and taking care of people and really providing tremendous customer service. It was just an extraordinary time. And then a year later, it wasn't such an extraordinary time because we had a developer who was a contained leader. Every day he came into the resort and focused on what people weren't doing well. He focused on the 5% that wasn't being done perfectly, rather than the 95% that was just wonderful. And as a consequence, a year later, he had employees who didn't see possibility anymore. They saw drudgery, having to go to work every day. The benefits, on the other hand, of looking to people's greatness are increased confidence. Just think about it yourself. If you knew that you didn't have to, but you had the opportunity to go to work every day where someone would tell you how terrific you are, wouldn't you want to go to work? Yeah, we all would. There's other possibilities. You create this culture, if you will, inside your company. By looking to what people are great at, you create a culture where people focus on what's possible. See, if you look at what's wrong, they look at what's wrong. They look at what's wrong, they look at the obstacles constantly. There is no possibility in that. So there is more innovation and creativity. If I keep telling you how terrific you are, aren't you more likely to be think more creatively, to offer more suggestions? It reduces conflicts. Across the board, it reduces conflicts because people are feeling better. It increases productivity, and it reduces turnover. That's how this whole looking to greatness. Again, I want to stress, this is not the most expensive, the most complicated solution to our leadership challenges, but oftentimes, in my experience, it's the simple that is the most powerful. Look at athletic teams worldwide. Worldwide, those who achieve greatness, whether it's individual sport or team sports, those who achieve greatness do the fundamentals well. Do the fundamentals well. There was a college basketball coach in the United States named John Wooden. He coached at UCLA. And during a period of time, I wish I could actually remember the statistics, but they won at one point 80 basketball games in a row without a loss. They won, I believe it was 15 or so national championships here in the United States among all the college teams. And he had incredible superstars, players who went on to just extraordinary levels of success as professional basketball players. And ask each one of those superstars what they were forced to look at in college on the basketball court every afternoon at practice, and they would say fundamentals. How did we pass? How did we shoot? How did we defend? How did we do the basics well? And that's what contagious leadership is all about. That's what looking to greatness is. So how do we develop this habit? How do we practice this habit of looking to greatness when, and using some guidelines when we're practicing the habit of looking to greatness? First of all, you need to identify each person's strengths. Now think about this. This is not an easy challenge. I'm not talking about identifying just their technical skills. Are they a good programmer or not? But identify their behavioral strengths. Think about this one. And if you have to use any kind of assessment tools, we encourage you to do that. But if you have a culture, for example, inside of your company that is very disciplined, very steady, very dependable, very reliable, and very detailed, and you hire someone who has the technical qualifications to do the job, but in fact, they're not disciplined, steady, reliable, and detailed. They're aggressive, they're fast-paced, and they just want to kind of go like heck and get it done. Okay? culturally, they're not going to fit your organization very well at all. Our job is to get to know people's strengths, however it is that we need to get to know their strengths. Their technical strengths, their behavioral strengths as well. We need to get to know those strengths. Oftentimes, it's as simple as asking them. Now, you can use various assessment tools. There's lots of them available. But sit down and ask someone what their strengths are. Not your skills. What are your strengths? What makes you stand out? Ask somebody, and they'll tell you. Step 2, refer to those strengths whenever possible. For example, you might say in a meeting, let's make sure we get Tony on this team. She's a great project manager. Well, make it your business to know that Tony's a great project manager, and then you can bring in those people's strengths. So the step 2 is make a habit of referring to people's strengths as often as possible. Step 3 is hold people accountable for their strengths. Contagious leaders not only identify people's strengths, but they hold them accountable for those strengths. You know, there's that whole notion about making people be great, taking a stand for their greatness. They don't let people off the hook. Contagious leaders don't let people off the hook. They set very high standards, and they say to you, I expect, Susan, that you're going to meet these standards because you're great. And I know you can do it. And I believe in you. And when people know that you believe in them and you take a stand for them, big things begin to happen. Okay, so let's recap what we've learned today. In our efforts to help employees be their very best, sometimes we overlook simple strategies. Looking to greatness is a strategy that focuses on people's strengths, really focuses, and it's just a strategy. Some leaders look at what's wrong. We learned that some leaders look at what's wrong, they focus on what people are doing poorly, while others, the contagious leader, focuses on people's strengths. We learned that the latter, focusing on people's strengths, is really the most effective strategy. And isn't that what we're really all about, is being effective? The benefits of looking to greatness are numerous. Increased employee confidence. If I know that people are going to be looking at my strengths every day, you bet I'm going to have more confidence when I go to work. And as a consequence of that, we're going to create an environment full of possibility where people are focused on what we can do, not what the obstacles are. As a consequence of that, we will create an environment full of innovation and creativity where people are actually offering solutions. We'll also have less what we call, quote unquote, being right. People sometimes can get committed to being right rather than being effective. And if we have less of that, another benefit is that we have less conflict. With less conflict becomes increased productivity. I mean, we spend how much time trying to deal with the conflicts when we could be getting things done? And also because of all those conflicts and that little or lack of productivity, we have turnover, and looking to people's greatness will reduce turnover because people want to work in an environment where they're appreciated. There are 3 steps we learned to practice this strategy of looking to greatness. The first step is make sure we know what people's strengths are. Take it upon ourselves to be responsible for really getting to know our people well, whether that's through assessment tools, through observation, or simply by asking them what we think they're great at. They'll tell us if we just ask them what we think they're great at. The second thing we want to do is refer to those strengths as often as we possibly can. We can't tell people how terrific they are enough. And finally, hold them accountable. If I'm going to tell you, or if you're going to tell me how terrific I can be, then hold me to that standard. If we can hold people to this standard, this is a very simple strategy, but the power in it will go beyond your understanding. You look to people's greatness, take this back, and every day focus your attention on looking to people's greatness. Know their strengths, refer to it, hold them accountable to it. Your performance as a department, as a company, your productivity, your results will skyrocket, and your people will be the best that they can be.